Hey, it's Josiah, and this is Horror Month. That's right, Jackal and I's month-long exploration of horror media continues. After talking about Lucio Fulci's gory nightmare of a film, The Beyond, over on the Patreon, Jackal and I are pivoting to a more recent film. On today's episode, we're talking about Savageland.
A grisly discovery in the town of Sangre de Cristo this morning, and a number of SDC residents are reportedly still missing. Because as one police spokesman put it, the whole town is a crime scene.
Spent 30 years patrolling this border. You're gonna see some horrible things.
We all thought it was a mass murder case. Serial killer.
Our thoughts and prayers go out to the families of the Sangre de Cristo victims.
A person of interest was detained.
We found the suspect covered in blood.
38-year-old Francisco Salazar, an illegal immigrant, has been charged with over 24 counts of first-degree murder.
Everybody seems so shocked about this. Not me. Because I know what these people are capable of.
If this guy actually killed the whole fucking town, fucking kill him. Fry his ass.
A serial killer. That was pretty much the general consensus.
Francisco Salazar remains jailed under high security in Heinzman.
But then the photos emerged. It changed. It changed everything that we thought about.
I don't understand. Why did you keep taking pictures?
You own a gun? I do. Ever since I've seen these photographs, I've been sleeping with it under my pillow.
This is a movie that Jackal and I both absolutely love. It is a horror mockumentary set on the southern border between Arizona and Mexico, where a small town is massacred overnight, and an undocumented immigrant is left as the sole survivor, having taken cryptic and difficult-to-interpret pictures of the events. It's a really great movie and well worth a watch if you haven't seen it. I hope you enjoyed today's episode about it. But before we get going, I do need to say that you could support the show on Patreon. For a mere $3 a month, you get access to a whole back catalog of exclusive episodes and 2 new ones each month. You also get access to the Fruitless Discord, as well as the occasional deleted scene from a main feed episode. If you're not quite ready to support the show on Patreon, consider just leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps out with the algorithm, and hey, I might read your review at the top of an episode. All right, with all that out of the way, let's get on with the episode. You are listening to Fruitless, a podcast hosted by me, Josiah's son, as well as my good friend Jackal for this month. This is episode, 73, The Cost of Bearing Witness, where Jackal and I talk about the 2015 horror mockumentary, Savageland. Hello, everybody. We're back. We're back for the third installment of Horror Month here at Fruitless. It's getting spookier than ever.
We're getting closer and closer to Halloween. Can you feel it?
And I do like that because I put off this month way more than I should have. We are going to be really hugging Halloween here.
More than usual.
Damn it. Yeah, it ended up being a bit of a hectic month, but we are getting the episodes out, so you're going to be getting a bunch in your feed. And today we are talking about Savageland. And this is, I think, the least known movie or piece of media we're going to talk about this month. Am I wrong in saying that?
No. I think that the best known is probably Candyman.
Yeah.
But I feel like more people know about From Beyond than, or The Beyond. Sorry, From Beyond is a other completely different, but also equally gory horror movie.
Yeah, that's Stuart Gordon, right? From yeah.
Of Reanimator fame.
Yeah, I've been meaning to watch that. I've never seen it.
It's great. It's very, very. If you like The Beyond, it's also very moist.
Yeah, Stuart Gordon's champion of the American moist film.
Savageland is not The
moist.
Beyond is more well known, I think, among general audiences than Savageland.
Yeah, Savageland came out in 2015, so it's, I think, the newest piece of media we're going to talk about this month. It came out in 2015. It was, it had a small, release. I think it was played at Comic-Con and, a couple film festivals.
Yeah.
And then kind of nothing came of it, and it has slowly found a second life, I think, with a cult following online, with people who've stumbled into it and then told their friends about it.
Not just telling their friends, but it's from people telling, I heard about it from some horror movie Twitter account that was doing an October list of these are the horror movies from these subgenres that I recommend, and this was on that list. You might have heard about it from YouTube. You might have heard about it from Letterboxd. It's a movie that people tell other people about, and it feels like that you don't really have that as much anymore. Most movies you hear about it because it's within your sphere.
Mm-hmm.
This is a movie that feels like it is of the 80s, where it's a movie that you watch on VHS and then you tell your buddy about it.
It's word of mouth movie. About it. Yeah. I think that serves it well. Obviously, I would like more people to see this movie. I would be happy if it became a movie that people just were like, oh, that's a recognized classic you ought to see. But
I think
there's something special about it in this little kind of gray zone we're in right now, where it's something you hear about from someone else.
Yeah, I think that it is getting more recognition as time goes on. If you go back to even just 4 or 5 years ago, there wasn't as much content talking about the movie as there is now.
And so because of that, a lot of the actors involved with it, the directors, everything, have just kind of gone on to do other stuff very unrelated to it, which is kind of a shame, I think, but also understandable. A lot of the actors in this were just LA actors. There's a few exceptions to that we'll talk about, but a lot of them are just, that went on to do stand-up or something, they just kind of
they did other stuff. This was just a job.
And so also because of that, there's not a lot of behind the scenes stuff about it. With the last two movies, there's a lot of stuff I would read up on, or just a Wikipedia page that there was a lot to skim through. This is one of the few times where a media product that I'm talking about here has resulted in me being the one editing Wikipedia. Because there's one interview, well, at least only one I found with the director that we both read, and none of that stuff that was in it was on the Wikipedia, so there wasn't a production tab. There's a production tab now. You're welcome, everybody.
I wish that there was more. I feel there's a lot of behind the scenes information that would only help to further contextualize the movie that we, aside from that interview, we kind of don't know anything else about it.
It's something I'm sitting on now as maybe a potential project, because the thing I've gathered is I think everyone involved with this movie, with a few exceptions, would be very easy to get a hold of if I wanted to.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so Savageland is a mockumentary film, which is a genre that it's a mockumentary horror film, which is a genre that is hard to do right, I think. Although if you do it right, it's one of my favorite things you can do. It's one of my favorite genres or styles of film you can do.
Yeah, it's not easy. It feels like found footage is easier to do than mockumentary. Mockumentary requires a certain level of production to it. Mm-hmm. You need to have a basis of stuff. Think about if any documentary movie or series that you've seen, and think about the amount of information that they're bringing up to you and citations about people and events. You need to make that stuff exists for a documentary. You need to make all of that for a mockumentary.
And you need to maintain that level of realism that's felt, which I think is also essential to found footage movies. However, a lot of found footage movies don't seem to agree with me, which is part of my pet peeve with that genre generally.
Right. But if you think back to the beginning of the genre of the subgenre of found footage, technically it started, further than this, but this is the popular consensus formalization of it as we think of it now.
Blair Witch,
yeah. That's a mockumentary.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that the part of why that movie works so well is the realism to it. Again, so it's kind of funny. We talked about Italian horror on the Patreon last, and that's a movie that, shows a side of, my taste in movies where I really don't give a shit about realism and I don't want it. There's a huge exception to that, which is found footage and mockumentary, because I think it's essential to the genre for it to feel real. Because found footage, mockumentary, this kind of stuff, part of what it is being about the medium, it's about like how it feels, and it is supposed to do stuff with that realism. And I think a lot of found footage movies today, like shitty ones you'll run into on Tubi or something like that, are usually low budget movies where they didn't have the guts to just make a normal movie with shitty cameras. So they wanted to justify using shitty cameras.
Yeah. You run across a lot of those on Tubi. And I know this because I spend many a late night just having Tubi on.
Me too.
Mostly watching Bigfoot movies, but that's a separate thing.
There's a lot of found footage Bigfoot movies.
There's a lot of really bad found footage.
Sure
Bigfoot.
are.
I've seen
there's some okay ones too.
The majority of them on Tubi. But there's good ones. Ones that, did make the cut to talk about during October, but It Exists is a really good one. Willow Creek is another good one.
I think I've seen both of those.
Yeah, they're both good.
They're
like
good.
You do have you've got a handful of good, and this is sort of just indicative of it's hard to do because you have to have the actors have to feel genuine, like real people. You need to provide that basis in reality, and you also need for it to feel like a documentary.
And because of that, the camera is almost a character, and because of that, you, by definition of being found footage or mockumentary, you are asking, well, why is there a camera there? If you don't have a good explanation for that, it's a bad movie then. But
Savageland has an excellent answer as to why is there a camera. And it also skirts the issue of filming stuff by having it as photos.
And again, this movie does something with the question of why is there a camera there? There's a reason for it, and it's also a reason that makes everyone suspicious. And so it is actually playing with that question. At the end of the day, when you're making a mockumentary or a found footage movie, you are dealing with the question of why is there a camera there and what are the ethics of having a camera there? And if you do something with that, it usually is better than not. But this movie, it deals with that in two ways. One of that is when it comes to the actual photographs that of the horror incident that occurred, which is being talked about in the past tense. There are photographs there, and we're trying to understand why were these photos taken and what are we seeing in these photos, which is really eerie. It really gets under your skin. And then it also deals with it because why is there a documentary? That the broader framing device about it? Well, because in the world of this film, which feels very real, this is a forgotten case. This is a local case that didn't get national attention, and it presents itself almost like a true crime documentary.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the way that it presents the different perspectives of how this event happened and how people try to frame it in different ways, in different levels of believability. One of them being, if it wasn't a horror movie, this probably would be true.
Yeah. Lawrence Ross's interpretation would be correct if this wasn't a horror movie.
Right. Unfortunately, he's in a horror movie, so no, it's not the Klan. It's something else. It's something a lot weirder than that.
Yeah.
How long do we want to wait till we spoil what the monster is in this movie?
At this point, if you haven't seen the movie and you want to see the movie and you want the full impact of not knowing where it's going, stop it. Okay. It's zombies.
Are you surprised?
But I think this is the scariest zombie movie I've ever seen.
Certainly for me, this is the scariest I've seen zombies in a long time.
Because I love zombies, but I don't actually find them particularly scary. Maybe I'll find the societal collapse around them scary. But why these work so well is that the only photos we have of the zombies are blurry, fucked up film photos of them.
Yeah, they're heavily distorted to the point of it's hard to even really tell. The anatomy is very distorted. The proportions are off. The only thing that you can really make out is their glowing white eyes and the indications of blood and pieces missing from them.
Yeah,
everything else is it's like part of it is the camera, but it makes you wonder what they actually looked like.
Yeah. Which it's interesting if you look at some behind the scenes photos that do exist out there. They're on the Savageland, like the website for the film. If you did see a very clear picture of them, they're not particularly scary. They look like normal zombies. They got some extras, covered them in blood, and got makeup designers to kind of fuck with them. But what really sells the movie is that you don't see them in that context. You see them in these photos that are taken, these very blurry photos that were taken in the heat of a very horrific incident.
And the way that it's paced doesn't really give you a break to... This all happens on one night, this event.
Over the course of like an hour, this time viewing, I paid more attention to the times, and it's like over like a single hour.
Yeah. It's quick, and it's photo, so we don't get an idea of like how they move, but there's kind of the implication that they're kind of closer to a little bit like the rage virus in 28 Days Later.
There's also something, and everyone can take a shot because we say this too much, there's something Lovecraftian about them. Even though they're zombies, they don't quite feel like a movie zombie. Like everyone who gets affected is spoiling the end, they're all going north. They all get infected and then go north.
And they disappear in the night. They go in, eat people, and then disappear in the night. And just keep moving north. It's not, replenishing the horde, which it feels even weird to use like typical zombie terminology on them, like the horde or infection, because we don't know anything about how they function as zombies. No. Obviously, I think there's something supernatural about them. I think the movie's kind of putting some seeds that something vaguely demonic too, with the way that they look, and also by the talk of that this is like a perversion of Christ's resurrection. Yeah, there's a kind of detour it takes into kind of how the generally Catholic population seemed to have been dealing with this when it happened. Specifically, the main character and other characters whom are religious. Yeah, not to mention the town that gets, completely, obliterated, is named Sangre de Cristo, which is Blood of Christ. It's the name of the town. So there's a little bit of that as well. It's not central, but I do think that is at least like something to chew on about the nature of what they are. And part of what the horror of them is that they come out of nowhere. And the only one left is the guy who took the pictures. And naturally, he gets scapegoated. So diving in here to the film, it opens like... Okay, so I was really jealous. I was seeing some Letterboxd reviews and stuff like that of people who stumbled into this movie not knowing it was fiction. Because from the very beginning, this feels exactly like a found footage documentary. So we open with news footage, kind of out of context. We open with talking heads saying the scariest shit, the kind of stuff that you hear talking heads say. You've got like a great line from the character Len Matheson, we'll get back to, saying like, so the interviewer asking, do you own a gun? And he's like, after I've seen these pictures, yeah, I own a gun. It does a great job of building up the tension of, I'm really jealous of people that didn't know that this was a horror movie. Yeah. Because it presents stuff so well as, this is exactly how a documentary, not a cheaply done documentary, but like a budget true crime documentary is edited. Yeah, absolutely. It has that feel like just down to a T. And this was the result of their various budgetary limitations. So they started writing this and were trying to figure out how to make a movie without going to a studio and producing a script. All three of them are UCLA grads. I wasn't sure if they were working there or finishing up graduate degrees when they made this movie, something like that though. So how they landed on doing a mockumentary style is that they were talking about various thrillers that they liked. And they talked about Paradise Lost, which is a documentary that's classified as a thriller. And they kind of came up with the idea of like, okay, well, what if we just like make a mockumentary as a way of doing a thriller? And that's kind of how they got here. And their idea was
to make everything feel as real as possible. So despite having very limited budget, they are not going to do something that doesn't feel real. So because of that, there's actually a lot of corners cut you don't notice are cut because they make it feel more like a documentary. So they knew they weren't going to be able to film in a courtroom. It would look bad if they filmed in a courtroom. So what did they do? They had a guy that was a friend who could do courtroom sketches.
Yeah, and they give the justification that, well, this is a high-profile case, so the judge orders that there are no news cameras allowed in the court proceedings, so you have to rely off of court sketches, which is a real thing that happens.
Totally happens.
So it all goes into giving it that sense of believability that this was an actual thing that happened. The sheriff has a public access TV show.
So good.
With very cheesy, open license music on it with him if you have ever watched public access television, you've seen this before. You've seen this kind of thing before of local guy doing a show, showing off his horses at his ranch.
This was very WNUF Halloween special, the chunks that showed the public access, because it looks a lot like that movie. So, they had the courtroom sketches. Phil Guidry, one of the directors, knew an architect. So they had him do an architectural rendering of that town, which gives it the feel like a documentary that's like showing the geography of the town and stuff. And they found that would be better than filming walking through the town, that would start looking cheaper. So a lot of things like that are, very specifically, a limitation that then ended up turning into something that felt more authentic than if they tried to film it that way.
Yeah, versus like if they tried to use, well, at that time, I don't think that drone footage, it was being used, but not as widely as we do now. But it would, they would show their cards early as to, the budgetary limitations, because the town actually does not exist. So you would have to find a town that, and having this, the SketchUp layout of the town gives us a sense of geography and place of where events happen. And then when you start to see, like, when they show the dots of where the bodies were found, it shows you the kind of scale that you're working at. And how ridiculous the idea that it was one guy just moving through a town, killing all of these people, and burying the bodies too, before he stumbles onto the free. We'll get into like how dumb the argument is that it was one guy that did this.
Yeah,
but it is this all takes place within an hour. It's a night, but the actual massacre happens in an hour.
Yeah, like 8 to 9 or so
in Sangre de Cristo, Arizona, which is on the border between, the U.S. and Texas.
Yeah. Fictional town, but feels very real.
But very real. So the players that we have in regards to setting this up, we have this border town that's primarily populated by illegal immigrants and legal immigrants, people that are related to legal immigrants, people that their legal status is, iffy. That's that town. And then I can't remember how they said, how far away the other town is. There's a bigger white majority town that the people from this town go and work in that town.
Yeah, and this is a very, like, a rural enough area by the border here that, like, the person dealing with this event isn't, like, a town sheriff, isn't, like, the police department of these towns. He's the county sheriff.
Right. It's a town that's so small that it only... Well, it might be even generous of calling it a town, because like it's technically like a village of 50-something people.
Yeah, it's 57 people.
There's one church that's been out of use for a long time. This will become relevant.
Yep.
In a very sad way, is being refurbished by this other. I'm going to guess that this was a Catholic church, but it's being repurposed by. It kind of feels like an evangelical Protestant mission.
Yeah. Although, to be clear, this guy isn't really presented in a bad light by any means. Like, I feel like with the audience of the show and my preoccupations with evangelicalism, this clocks you as weird. But like, you immediately have an image of this guy. He seems, by all accounts, a pretty good guy. It's like a guy who felt really called to go to a place where there wasn't, like a lot of faith communities had abandoned the area because of the general crime and shit like that kind of happened in the area. They didn't feel the need to deal with it. And this is a guy that felt an obligation to serve this community in some way.
Right. He and his wife are not, it is genuine, like that desire to come and help. And you also get the implication that they were trying to generally help out the community at large, and they didn't make themselves feel like outsiders or above the residents of the town. They sent their daughter off to the school. They worked there. They lived there. They were trying to not be outsiders, but to be a part of the community.
Yeah, which brings in another piece of geography there is we have a preschool. Oh, God. So sorry.
Yeah, that becomes plot relevant.
Yeah.
This is a sad movie. If
this
you're
is a
at
really
this point
sad movie,
and you have not, if you've decided that I'm not going to watch it, I'm going to listen to Josiah and Jackal yap about it. Well, buddy, this is a very sad movie.
It's sad, and it will make you angry, especially if you have the political preoccupations that, I assume you probably do if you're listening to the show. It's going to make you pretty angry.
So we're set up that we have the setting in Arizona of a border town. We have the dynamics that come with it, and then we have the players who are the before we get to the sole survivor of the massacre at Sangre de Cristo. Who are the players that are relevant after the massacre?
Yeah, so I think one of the most important is going to be County Sheriff John Perano, and he's going to be the chief guy going after Salazar, who we'll come back to. You've also got Lawrence C. Ross Jr. He is a kind of black writer who tends to write about racial issues and stuff like that, who took a special interest in this case. And we also have Dan DeLuca, county deputy, also another right-wing figure in this, along with the sheriff. And then we have Gus Greer, who is a right-wing talk show host, who does a great job in this.
He feels perfectly despicable.
And I want to vindicate him from, as a person from his character. Because like I said, there's not a lot about this movie out there. So it led me down the rabbit trail of trying to find these actors on social media and stuff like that. So Edward Green, who plays, Gus Greer, is an awesome Twitter lib. He's like posted about the Orange Man and the White House and shit. It's awesome.
I was scrolling his social media, his Twitter before we started recording. He's so cool.
He's great. He's got a YouTube channel that's just like, clips from like stuff he's appeared in, and it's like weird like skits and stuff like that he's done on commercials and stuff, and he's very funny, actually. He also did something incredibly funny, which is something I don't think you're supposed to do. If you go on like one of those fake court shows, like America's Court or whatever, if you have a brain, you know that they have actors doing that. It's fake, right?
You'd hope. Yeah.
They are fake, but they're contractually obligated usually to not acknowledge that. But this guy's a struggling actor, so he uploaded his appearance on America's Court with Judge Ross. And all the comments are like, I don't think you're supposed to be uploading this, man.
Look, you gotta include, when you have a resume, you have to pad it out.
Yeah, man. I have nothing against him. I totally get that. Man, if I was on something like that, I'd be sharing it around everywhere. But he's great. His character, deeply contemptible. Really horrific guy. I'm trying to think of some other players here.
Well, we do have he's not directly involved. He's not a local, but he's an expert that the documentary brings.
Oh, one of the talking heads. Oh, Len Matheson, that character?
Yes.
He's really good.
Now, this was a figure that I was saving. I hope that you didn't find out who he was.
Oh, I knew, but let's go ahead and say I knew you were going to bring this up.
Yes. So Len Matheson, the photographer that they bring in as a expert witness to give credibility to Salazar and talk about how things are as a photographer and the thought process that you have being a photographer and the ethics of being of being a photographer and everything associated with that is played by Len Wein, who is the co-creator of Wolverine.
Yes. This guy is amazing that he's in this, because he is like, he's one of there's two people in this that are like kind of well known, in some regard outside of this movie. And they're kind of like, why are they in this movie? How did they end up in this movie? Is it just like a friend of a friend got it? I don't know.
He wasn't unknown as like a guy who would play in things. Like, if you go to his Wikipedia, he has a pretty extensive filmography of just appearing in random TV shows related to like comic books or superhero stuff in general. And then there's Savageland.
Yeah, and I mean, so again, I was having a fun day of Wikipedia editing. It wasn't even on his filmography on his Wikipedia page, but I fixed that.
Yeah, that you are doing the work of accurately placing it. Yes, one of Len Wein's last, one of the things he did, because unfortunately Len Wein passed away
shortly after this
in 2017.
Right.
One of the last things he did was play Len Matheson in Savageland, and play him like really well.
No, he's actually one of the characters that sold this movie to me when I first watched it, because so like his character, is a former AP photographer who was there at like Vietnam and Cambodia. Just with my own special interests on this, like I took a photo history class in college, and we did a long chunk on the AP photographers in Vietnam. And so like, not only is that like just a thing I was like, oh hey, point at the camera, I know that. It was also that he says a bunch of stuff in this that's like feels weirdly like on the nose for like the kind of philosophy and thought process behind a lot of that. He's got one of my favorite lines in the movie we'll come back to later, which is his description of when Salazar no longer becomes a historian and then becomes a participant, which is, I think, kind of really relevant to the commenting on the medium kind of stuff that's going on in this. He's great. He's a great character. It's really cool that they got him. The other one that's like kind of a well-ish known character is actor. I shouldn't, because he's not even an actor, and it's really interesting he's in this, is Lawrence Ross, who is playing himself. That is a writer. He writes about history, and he does actually write about the history of race in America and stuff like that. And so it adds a real deep level of realism to it, because I'm not sure if the quick books it flashes when he first gets introduced are, pretty sure the stuff they flash from him briefly are real, just like actual like books he wrote.
Which, speaking of credibility, like that instantly adds to the believability of this, that, oh, there's like this is a real guy. These are real books.
Again, very jealous of people who watched this thinking it was a true crime documentary. Yeah, so a lot of those like little details that I think really help sell this. And yeah, I think everybody does a great job in this.
Yeah, everyone that has a speaking role in this plays it very well. It's like, yeah, this feels like just a person, both in terms of like the random people from the town saying terrible, terrible things about Hispanic people, to the families of the victims of the massacre. The tremendous sense of loss that they have does not feel, like it feels genuine. People that are talking about this horrific thing that happened, that there's a certain level of disconnect that they have, because it's difficult to wrap their head around what happened. Some people don't even have remains to bury, because one of the details that they give the documentary is that as we begin, the documentary, we get the talking heads, we get that intro, and one of the details that they give is that from the massacre, there are just blood trails that go into the desert. There are chunks of bodies, parts. There's I don't even think they give you a full idea of complete bodies, how many they actually were able to find.
I think it says in passing that they recovered 20 bodies, but then later say that the town had a population of 57, which is really chilling, that detail.
and they flash, coroner reports showing the body and just showing like the outline of the body to report like what's there. Mm-hmm. And you see them just sort of mark like there's an arm, there's a leg, there's
but blood trails that go for quarter mile.
And then they flash crime scene photos of it, and it's because it's you have that overexposure of the camera and the light, and it's in broad daylight that adds to the believability that, well, okay, if you really analyze it, no, it's not real, but when it's just flashing, it feels like, it tricks your brain into thinking that you're seeing something that you don't want to see.
Yeah. And of course, like the kind of perspectives you start to see pretty clearly is I think a lot of the ways the movie positions Lawrence Ross, the writer, kind of against all of the law enforcement and a lot of the residents of the town over. And so you get the perspective from like law enforcement and stuff like that is like, look, this is a really crime filled area. There's gangs. There's a lot of, it's the borderland, right? Like that, this is how it is. And so it doesn't feel crazy to assume that that's what this was just an outpouring of that. And, what I do really like about this movie is, while the movie progressively shows you how ridiculous that position is, I don't think you ever doubt the idea that somebody could believe the right-wing racist position on this, because there's just enough there that you can latch onto if you already have a bigoted worldview about this specific group of people.
Right. But it does bring into question, this is an event that, if you have these prejudices, allow you to just fill in the blanks and chart this away as just, the nickname that the people of, the wealthier town over call Sangre de Cristo. They call it Savageland. That's where like the title of the movie come from. That's what they think of the people that live there.
One of the guys in a bar that they're interviewing says they call it Savageland, so that's where the title comes from, and it's because they can't pronounce the name. Which the non-racists deal with by just saying SDC, which is what I'll probably say so that I don't keep fucking up my Spanish. But it's SDC. That would seem like a pretty non-racist way to say that. But no, Savageland, because that's where the savages live.
Well, and Ross, makes a note of it that these are people that work for them. They're contractors. They're housekeepers, they're babysitters, but they think of them as subhuman.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a very clear class thing going on throughout the film as well. But yeah, so we get to the beginning of kind of the narrative here, and Francisco Salazar is going to be the guy that the movie is pretty much entirely about. So that's why we didn't give him in the kind of rundown of the main characters, because we will reveal that as we go through the movie, because that's part of the movie. Yes. And Salazar, was, picked up on the side of the road 12 miles away from SDC, collapsed on the side of the road. He's picked up by Mario Schatzer Rio, who is, was a truck driver, just got his license, and then this happened, which, what a rough beginning to your career there. And drives him to the hospital, and then the hospital contacted the cops. So this was the beginning of the incident. For a lot of people, this was when everyone started to hear about it, because Salazar was the only one who survived. John Perano, the sheriff, has his interpretation that Salazar is a serial killer. That's immediately kind of what he thinks happened here. There's a guy who worked with Salazar on a construction project at one point, said Salazar was quiet and weird, and that he would always take pictures. He always had a camera with him. And so one time his buddy dropped a sandwich and this freak fucking took a picture of it.
that sick freak taking pictures of sandwiches. Where does he get off?
This is such a good thing, good detail too, because I don't know, I like taking pictures a lot. I've had periods of my life where I've been really interested in photography, and yeah, people do kind of act like this. If you're interested in any sort of actual artistic street photography or something like this, they act like you're a freak.
Right. I think that the term that the sheriff said like, there's a word for people like that. The psychologists call them voyeurs. You know what I call them? Yeah. Perverts.
That's right. Well, and the reason for this too is like, as they raided his home, right? Salazar's home, and they found, a bunch of photos that, again, when you have started with this narrative that they've developed, look really weird. But then when you see
photos there's photos of roadkill.
Yes,
there's photos of people in the town that would then later on die. There's photos of
a lot of photos of a single young girl, which the sheriff describes as suggestive. They are not. Of course, they show these pictures. They are not suggestive, which shows a lot about the sheriff's psychology.
Right. It shows a lot about the sheriff's psychology, and it shows that there's already the legs of this case are so weak. They're just trying to add as much as they can about him. Like, he's the stuff that they get. Like, he gives about Salazar, like, fitting all of the descriptions of serial killers. He's of a low class background. He's a loner, he's a voyeur, he just kind of sounds like a quiet guy to me. Like, but if you already have the narrative that they're trying to build to justify a guy killing 57 people in an hour at night by himself, they just have to add as much as they can. And you then later you find out, well, why are there so many pictures? It's because he was friends with the family. There's pictures of the family. Of the Putnam family in general, because he got to know them. He worked at the church that he was helping to restore the church with the family.
And it seems like he babysat, he was around these kids a lot. But no, it's already fitting into this narrative that, was already in the air. It was very easy to grab. And so, like, we cut to Gus Greer talking about the inherent violence, like culture that he comes from. We get, him going on a very, like, I don't know, Rush Limbaugh-esque rant where he's like, the Mexican, the Cholo, La Raza. It's a culture that celebrates death.
It is an insane delivery.
He's really good at this.
I wish that he was in more things because he's a very good actor.
If I make a movie, I'm getting Ed Green. I'm getting Ed Green. We also got another character here that we forgot to mention the list there, Greg Dobman, something like that, who's the defense attorney.
This rube. This spineless little weasel man.
Yeah, is he seems like he's supposed to be a public attorney or something like that, and he's not actually trying at all.
He is the public defense attorney. They say it's his third case.
So he's just going with everything. He's kind of, I think he thinks he's guilty. He thinks that Salazar's guilty. So he's just kind of giving this best of outcome as he can, maybe give him an insanity plea or something. But
right. And the thing that is said in the movie later is, well, why didn't you introduce the photos as evidence? And he says, oh, well, I couldn't do that. They'll think I'm crazy. They'll just spar me. It's like, well, man, I don't know. I think probably not.
But our first sign that he's this bad is that there's like mumble from the interviewer asking him a question, and then he goes, I'm not going to talk about the teeth marks.
What do you mean you're not going to talk about the teeth marks?
So
there are teeth marks, and none of them belong to Salazar.
And so we cut to Lawrence Ross explaining this. He's like, the teeth marks don't match Salazar's dental records, and Salazar had teeth marks on him. Like, you have to imply he bit himself in this process.
Well, we get another character witness. Not for Salazar, but like a general, like kind of for Salazar. You get someone who is, you get another sort of talking head, and it's a border patrol agent who
Carlos
functions as like
Carlos Oliveras. I might be mispronouncing that, but Carlos,
I think
Olivares. But yeah, Carlos.
He is a either second or third generation border patrol agent,
and the only good border patrol agent, it turns out.
Yes, he's the only guy in the documentary, including, Ross, who talks about the loss of who gets past the sensationalism of what happened and talks about the people that died and the family members who are grieving. And also that you kind of get the idea that from the get-go, he believed Salazar because he had also been seeing things and hearing about things.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when he first appears, it feels like he's just saying the same shit the sheriff and the deputy are saying, like, well, this is a crime-ridden area. Lots of weird shit happens, blah, blah, blah. But then it's starting to be more like, he, as the movie goes on, you start to realize, well, no, he's actually witnessed stuff he doesn't feel like he can explain, and that weird stuff has been happening, and it seems to be shifting his perspective on everything.
Right. Yeah. He approaches everything with significantly more empathy than most of the talking heads in this, aside from, Len Matheson. Len Matheson seems to also, he's just kind of scared.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. So they're all sort of like giving the information of the more details that you hear about the massacre, the more that things don't begin to sound right. This doesn't sound like a typical true crime documentary. So one guy killed all of those people, and they show you the map of the town and the scale of which he would have had to move to all of these places at once to kill all of these people, and not just like stabbing people or shooting people. He's, at least what the prosecution is saying that he did, is that he massacred them with a machete. He dismembered people.
He killed the first victim with a pickaxe and then took a machete and went around town. And, as gets pointed out, I think by Carlos or someone else, and, this would require such a degree of military training for him to have pulled it off. It does not make sense. Like, it's technically possible. But
you would need a Terminator, essentially. Yeah. You would need a guy that was specifically trained to commit war crimes in Vietnam and just unleash him.
I was about to say, I think there's like a subtle thing going on with Matheson's character being a Vietnam photographer, because he talks a lot about the moral imperative of taking pictures in this incident during this occurring. I was thinking of a lot of My Lai throughout this. Yeah, no, to pull off something like this, you need to be the U.S. troops in Vietnam, not a single guy.
And this is a single guy that's 100 and something pounds, and like 5 foot. He's not a physically imposing person. He's thin. He's quiet.
But he's sentenced to death. They do it pretty immediately. They cut to an interview, a really good blacked out, voice distorted interview with one of the guys who's on the jury. And he said, yeah, we convicted Salazar within a half hour, which I think was too long.
He's sentenced to death, and his attorney says, we'll just appeal. We'll do what we can. We'll appeal.
Yeah, it explains that in Arizona, I don't know if this is true, but Arizona state law says that any death sentence automatically goes through an appeal process.
Right. I did not check if that was true, but it feels true.
It seems like something that would be true in some states. Arizona, I'm not sure.
Right. I do not know the details of the legal system in Arizona to make a specific comment, but that feels true.
And it's important to say, up until this point, we've seen no footage of Salazar.
No. We see the courtroom sketch of him.
But there was no filming in the courtroom.
We see his booking photo, I think. But we
haven't heard him speak yet.
No. But after we hear from the lawyer, we hear from Ross, and Ross is talking about that he had been trying to find the pictures, because one of the things that he had on him at the hospital was a camera, but no photos. This is not a digital camera. This is a camera with film. And that's important to note, because the sheriff will try to explain that, the kids around here could do amazing things with the Photoshop.
Yeah, so these aren't, legit or whatever. Lawrence did get a Freedom of Information Act request and stuff like that, and eventually ends up with one recording that's going to be consistently shown throughout the documentary as more information is revealed, which is I don't know if it's like a deposition or something, but it is an interview with a psychologist while he's arrested.
He's not talking, so they have a psychologist at the prison who is another person who is one of the only other people in the movie that presents empathy to Salazar, because she believes him.
Yeah. this footage is not used in the trial, is what
No.
Ross finds out.
No, and his lawyer says, well, if you hear him tell the story, it sounds he's a crazy person. It's like, well, if you're trying to build to a insanity defense, that sounds like
you should have used it then. Well, and this is a theme that we've had in all of the horror episodes we talked about that you were saying you really like, which is the inexplainable coming into contact with forces of explaining stuff, the scientific dealing with the unexplainable. This isn't quite that, but it's kind of similar. The legal trying to deal with the unexplainable. Like, they just don't accept this evidence because it's crazy.
Yeah, there's an interesting deconstruction that this movie does where it's essentially asking the question of what happens after the end of a horror movie.
Mm-hmm. Which I'm actually really interested in. Like, I know some people, have kind of an issue with this movie in that regard because it's, the ending is there from the beginning. There's no suspense in that regard, and that's true. But I do kind of like doing an autopsy of a horror thing.
It's a different. I think it's a different appeal than. Because you already know it, but I think that there's something interesting to find out about, well, how did it happen? And usually that's something that you don't want in your horror movie because you don't want to over-explain something. But this also doesn't over-explain anything. If any, it just gives you more questions.
Exactly, yeah. Well, one of those questions is going to be that then, during this whole process, after there's the psychologists, but they finally get hold of the film from the camera, right?
And it was in the truck driver's in the cabin of the truck.
And this is where I met the unexplainable little things. Ross was able to get a hold of this guy. This guy mailed him this roll of film. He said it fell out. It was in my car. I don't want anything to do with this. I don't want anything to do with this case. But here you go. And then he dies in a car crash 2 days later.
Yep. And this presents a question that whenever the movie is talked about, there's implications that there is a cover-up happening.
Yeah, which is, I don't know if we formally said at the end of the movie, that's Ross's interpretation of the events, is that this was a clan killing or a lynching or something like that, and then it got covered up.
Now, if this was a regular documentary,
that's probably true.
That would be that. I would say that's what happened. However, unfortunately for Mr. Ross, this is not a typical documentary. He's in a horror movie. So it's not a clan killing. It's not a lynching. The dead have come from the hills, and they are tearing people apart. Which
leaves, of course, Salazar completely traumatized, having witnessed it. So, when we cut back to some of the interview with the psychologists, when they finally get him to speak for the first time, he begins singing something to himself in Spanish. I don't recognize it. I don't know what he's singing, but it seems to be like a nursery rhyme or something almost.
Right. She says it's like he is
regressing, right?
He's regressing back to childhood. That what he has experienced is so traumatic that he's going back to, a comforting memory.
Yeah, she describes it as trauma similar to a combat vet. And then Salazar says one of the most chilling lines in the movie, that he's okay being arrested because at least they can't get me in here.
And from there, Salazar starts to speak about what happened.
Yep. So Salazar lived in SDC for 7 years. And on the night of what occurred, which, by the way, the photos, the judge ruled them inadmissible in court during the appeal. So cool. But anyway, during the night, that he took these photos, he is at his home, which is on the outskirts of town. And 17-year-old Danny Montez showed up at Salazar's home bleeding badly. According to Salazar, he led Danny in and tried to take care of him, but he collapsed on his couch and died. And then abruptly stood up after dying and attacked Salazar, which led Salazar to have to stop him with the only thing he had near him, which was a pickaxe, killing Danny with 37 puncture wounds.
Now, is that a bad look?
It looks bad. But what people point out is that he did something right after that, which was run into town to get help, Which is not what you do when you murder a 17-year-old.
No. Usually you run away when that happens, but he ran into town. Well, this is where we get the first photo. And as Ross said, like, the photos kind of changed everything. The photos shifted the narrative of this event completely, whether people want to believe them or not. It makes it, if you believe that Salazar did it, this makes it much harder to believe, because there would be such like a minimal amount of time to edit to edit these photos, and they're on film. They're not digital photos.
And so the first photo we get is the photo that's kind of the logo for this movie. It's shown at the very beginning as the logo. And it's, I think, the one you're describing that made you want to watch the film, which is, clearly he took it. He steps outside after he had to kill Danny. He's about to go into town, and he looks over the hill and sees a bunch of figures running at him. And he took a picture of them.
And he books it.
Salazar, as he's running into town, runs into Ron Templeton, who is a hunter guy with a gun on him. So photograph number 2 is of him. It's shaky. Templeton is looking confused. And supposedly Salazar got into his truck, and he knew to get into the truck because Templeton had a gun. And so he might be the one to be able to do something about this.
We get the implication that we also, Templeton's widow talks about Templeton, that he was a stand-up guy of the community, probably one of the only nice people in the other town.
And she's one of the only other people who does not believe Salazar did it.
Right, because her immediate thing is Salazar couldn't overpower her husband. Her husband was, tall. He was a hunter. He had a gun. How was this skinny, short guy, even if he had a pickaxe, why didn't her husband just shoot him? Because she says he's a great shot. And he has, as nice as he is, he's not dumb. He has an instinct to protect himself.
Yeah, as the photos make a much more clear answer to what happened. Salazar, hid by the truck and was hoping Templeton would help. And we get another photo, which is Templeton behind the, car shooting at the figures.
Well, we can kind of reconstruct this. That he comes to Templeton. Templeton is trying to help him out and sees figures just running at him from the hills and perches up, and he tries. Unfortunately, he didn't know that he was a zombie movie and didn't know to aim for the head.
Salazar keeps running and gets to the edge of town at 8 p.m. And Salazar, cuts to the interview with him, and he describes this moment as it was like hell, people running, people hurting each other.
Right. By this point, it's he didn't know that they were already in town.
And the next photographs that we're seeing in town are very blurry ones of figures in town, clearly pursuing him now or attacking each other or whatever. These are some of the most eerie photos to me, because this is where we get the glowing eyes and stuff.
There's something very wrong about the zombies as they're portrayed in this movie. They don't feel even like Romero zombies. They feel Lovecraftian. They feel demonic. There's something deeply otherworldly about them.
We get an interview with Matheson here, who explains, from his experience in Vietnam, that while you're shooting pictures, you feel like you can't get hurt. You have a sense of invincibility while you're taking pictures. And this explains to him, why Salazar is taking these pictures, because Matheson recognized Salazar as a photographer. Looking at the previous stuff, he's like, it's all good. It's nothing expert, but this is a guy who's clearly got an amateur interest in photography.
Right. He says he has the eye. This is clearly something that he's cultivated. He has a sense of what makes a good image, that he doesn't have the formal training, but he is a photographer.
And actually what Matheson says is that he's amazed how many of these pictures are actually pretty good. It's actually not that these are so bad of photos. This is actually pretty impressive that he got as many good photos as he did.
And we do get they give us the idea that there are a lot of photos of just nothing happening, of just empty streets. We don't see a lot of those, but there's a lot of they say there's a lot of that too.
Yeah, it's kind of also implied because they give you photo numbers when they show photos, and so there's it'll skip a few every once in a while.
And a lot of the photos, things are happening, and Salazar is trying to duck and move. I think that before we get to the church, Salazar is trying to get to a phone to call for help, and there is one landline, and it is at the gas station.
And he's trying to get there. It cuts to interview with Ross explaining that he's answering the question, well, why didn't people call the police when this was happening? And he explains, well, for these immigrants, the police are just another criminal element. They're another gang. And so that doesn't really feel like something that would, they probably wouldn't think to do that. On top of that, pretty much nobody there owns a cell phone.
Right. They have what's the term? Phone cards.
So they're really, this isn't an easy thing to take. They wouldn't be taking photos with those, and they, wouldn't be predisposed to call the cops during an emergency because they would think that would just make it worse, very likely. Plus, I think you gather how fast. Yeah.
This is happening so quickly.
Yeah.
Like Len says, if this happened in like a big urban area, absolutely, you would have photos from every single angle. You would have first responders on it. So you have but this is an isolated small town of 50-something people who are terrified of the police.
We have one event that occurs that Salazar has no photos of and very likely wasn't near, despite the fact that they try to blame him for, which is 8 of the deaths occur by the water tower, which is well away from where he's at, if we're taking the photos seriously, right? And these individuals jumped off of the water tower. And the implication is being whatever they are seeing, what is happening to them, they feel that it is better to die than to try to fight it back, which, as a couple of the talking heads kind of point out, doesn't sound like a single guy with a machete chasing them.
No. In fact, like the family of the victims talk about these were religious people. These were dyed-in-the-wool Catholics. Mm-hmm. What could be so bad that would convince them that jumping was a better out? It was one guy with a machete who couldn't logically be there because he was supposedly killing people miles and miles away.
As they say, Salazar, at least according to the photos, never came within 3 blocks of the tower. So it doesn't make sense. But Salazar was going somewhere else. He wasn't going to the water tower. And the religious themes we just brought up here are going to be relevant. Salazar was a deeply religious man himself. He was running to the church.
And it's not just because he's religious. It's because that is where the Putnam family is, who, right, as we said before, he had grown, they had developed like a friendship with the family.
In fact, they were so close that he has a key to the church. Another detail that does not add up, because when when investigators came to the scene of the church, the door was ripped from its hinges, which is not something somebody with a key would do.
Right. We get because we get a phone call. There's one phone call that was made out from the church from Dwayne Putnam. And it is so eerie, man.
Yeah, this part's brutal. So this fellow, friend that's like at the bigger church is kind of recounting what he got on this phone call. And then we get the audio from it. And what Dwayne is saying is, Grace, who is the name of their daughter, Grace is gone. Grace is gone. He's saying that over and over. He says, Grace is gone. Where is Grace? Don't judge me. Don't you judge me. Only God can judge me. Only he knows what I'm seeing. Only he knows what abomination. I am Abraham. I will deliver my family into God's hands.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, when it's zombies and you get there, the implication here seems to be that Dwayne, killed his family, either to stop them from becoming zombies or they had become zombies and he had to do it. And the audio is eerie enough. I'm getting a sense with how insane he's sounding that he's mid becoming a zombie while saying it. I don't know if that's a correct reading or not.
I kind of got that he is going insane because of he killed his family to spare them from becoming zombies. That's kind of because we don't really get like how the infection process works, like how fast it is. It seems that it seems fast in some cases, but then very slow in others.
Right. I mean, we know that Salazar was bit, so it doesn't seem to be following zombie rules on that level. Although on the flip side, Salazar seems really fucked up from this, which could be trauma, could also be that he's got some degree of the infection. I don't know. It's ambiguous.
Yeah, it's left ambiguous, but we do. Dwayne we know what happens to Dwayne because Salazar comes to the church looking for the family, and he finds them. Well, he finds he finds Dwayne, and while Dwayne is there, there's a photo of Dwayne being pulled out from the window by an arm.
Now, Sheriff Pirano has concluded that what Putnam did is just killed his family and himself with a machete, did a mercy killing. But what, some of the talking heads point out is like, sure, yeah, mercy killing. That seems like a thing that could happen. However, you don't dismember, which is what the family were completely dismembered. You don't do that. If you're in, God forbid, a situation where you have to kill your loved ones. Right. You wouldn't be doing that.
This is something that's brought by Carlos is, okay, all right, so you're saying that, the preacher in a stressful moment did the unthinkable. Okay, why would he butcher his family? What sense does that make?
Nevertheless, Dwayne kind of, much like Salazar, is damned in his memory because of this interpretation of it. So his remains are buried separately from the rest of his family.
Yeah, and his church talks about him as a lost soul who did the unthinkable and the unforgivable. And
yeah, that other pastor for like the bigger church or whatever is just like, he's just shocked by it, but he's like, I can't believe that he did this to his family. He did the wrong decision.
But it's not his entire family because Grace is not at the church. She is at the school.
So, at that moment, Salazar bolts to the preschool. And so, God, this is so fucked up. So this is, all of the children of the people who died in the field are at the preschool right now. So there is just there are 9 children and 1 teacher at the preschool confused about why the parents haven't arrived yet.
Yeah, because it's late. The school's been over for a minute and no one's come to pick up the kids. Well, in a horrifying way, the parents do come back.
This is also where the defense attorney says something that is the only thing that makes me a little sympathetic to the position he's been put in, which is you can't come back from that once the murder of children is even planted in people's minds.
Right. Because this is how, but it's like, this is the one thing where he comes across as, I don't know how you get around this. I don't know how you work through this. I don't know how because this is horrific. The photos that we get of the school as a crime scene are horrifying. There's no bodies, but it's like blood everywhere. Blood on walls, blood smears on the ground, torn, just things scattered around the floor, holes punched into the wall. It's horrifying.
And Salazar never actually got into the school, at least, according to his narrative. And because of that, he comes around the side of the school and finds there is a window or something with bars, metal bars. And so he can't get through it. And Grace is on the other side.
Yes. Grace is on the other side, and they are, oh man. This is like the whole movie is sad, but this is like one of the hardest parts to get through. Okay, so Salazar discovers that the flash of his camera slows them down.
Yes. So they seem scared of light in some way, which kind of also explains why it's happening at this moment, by the way, because it's like, it's a little after sunset seems to be when all of this is taking place.
It's at night. They come out at night. They're safe at night. The light seems to keep them away.
Yeah. And so Salazar is using his flash on his photos. With Matheson points out, I think this is the first time he's using flash in these photos, which explains, why he's doing that now. And, realize it slows them down. And then one of the final pictures we have, there's Grace screaming in a number of these. And then one of the last ones we have is Salazar's hand reaching out and grabbing her hand. As these figures behind her are grabbing her. And Matheson explains in an interview at this moment, actually, I want to make sure I have the full quote because I think this is an important piece to this. And suddenly he stops being a historian, stops being an observer and becomes an active participant. The moment he stopped being a photographer and decided to do a single human action to save somebody else is the moment that changed everything for him. And yeah, I mean, this is, you know, if we're taking Matheson's interpretation of everything we're seeing here, then like we like interpretation of Salazar's behavior, this makes sense if this is the moment that breaks him, because, you know, he's using this camera to feel removed from what's occurring, you know, feeling invincible in that way, like a photojournalist in a war zone does. But this is the moment when he breaks that and he stops. I think this is the final photographs, right? Am I correct on that?
Yes, these are the last. I think it's photos 35 to 37. Those are the last photos.
Yeah.
And that song that he was singing in the beginning, he was singing that to Grace. Because once he starts talking about this, he just starts singing it again. And we get that this is the last thing that he could do for her, is try to delay them, hold her hand, and sing as they get closer and closer and eventually kill her.
And this is also where I think we get the implication this is where he got the bite mark on his arm, was during this moment.
Right, because they're grabbing at him. And we get something, at least I kind of interpreted that he was trying to fight them off too.
Yeah. And, you know, this is the moment when he no longer is taking pictures. He's actually trying to do something.
Right. He's not an outsider. He is not, you know, he's not just documenting. He is an active participant of the story now.
Yeah.
Because for him, it kind of feels like this was, if he could do something that would matter, it would be now.
And this is, this is definitely the most upsetting chunk of the movie, I would say. Cause, you know, this is all cut in between interviews with parents, with various parents who lost kids, in this incident, which is where we get some of the best performances as well in this movie. I think we've got, the sister of one of the girls that was killed.
Right. She left the town a long time ago. She had felt like, well, and now she feels, you know, the regrets of, I should have come back. It was a dead end town, but that was my family. And now I can never, you know, I can never see, you know, them again because they're all gone. We hear about, the brother, I think, the uncle of one of them. And he's talking about that his nephew was born sickly. He was born premature. He had pneumonia, but he fought and fought, you know, and fought. And we get so much characterization of the residents of SDC that gives it life, that these were people with loved ones and inner lives and hope and, you know, hopes and dreams, and they were people. And the narrative around this event just becomes about the danger that could happen to the town, how the town feels, the town that matters. Because Sangre de Cristo doesn't matter.
Right.
It is viewed as these people were just things. The only person that gets a mention in the obituary is Templeton.
Everyone else goes nameless, but, you know, and so there's a sense that, like, if this documentary were real or whatever, this is like an important thing they're trying to do. You know, if this was, you know, real, is giving faces and names to the victims. And also, you know, some of these grieving people are some of the actors that I was investigating online. So the sister, Monica Ramos, was played by Monica Davis, who was got some stand-up you can go watch. Very weird to go from that movie.
I don't know if I could watch this movie and then watch stand up after that.
It's just like a few
total whiplash.
Few things on YouTube. They're not like specials even, but they're just like open mic stuff. And then David Castillo, who is, I think, the uncle guy. He's the one that he's holding up the picture and he's like, "Look at this kid smile. He's so great." He's played by David Saucedo. I might be mispronouncing that, but he's like kind of a character actor that has some small roles and stuff. He's in like one of the later seasons of Arrested Development and shit. And I think kind of fun, he's in Paranormal Activity, the marked ones, which is, I think, the best Paranormal Activity movie.
Oh man, I didn't even know that.
I didn't until now. Yeah, it's crazy because that one's awesome because that's like the Latino one. And
that is the best
Paranormal
Activity movie. That the series peaked at the marked ones.
Yeah, the early ones are all the like surveillance footage of like usually a white couple, usually ignoring the like Latina that tells them to stop fucking with shit. And then I like that that's the movie that completely reverses it, where it's a much more like lower class setting or whatever, and they like shoot a ghost with a gun. It's awesome.
And instantly they clock it as, oh, there's a ghost. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. But anyway, so that's fun. I don't know if he had a major role in it, but he's in there. Yeah, so very cool. I think they did a really good job in this movie. And heartbreaking scene.
So after the events of the night are recounted, we shift focus to the reaction to the photos, because they change things and things are recontextualized for a number of people. The sheriff tries to discount it as being fake. They are not they are not taken as evidence. So his appeal is lost. There is an implication that Ross did not release the photos until after the appeal publicly. Which does put Ross on like a pretty bad light here.
Yeah, Ross isn't a great guy in this movie. He's definitely good in a lot of regards. He's definitely got a pretty correct reading on the kind of social setting that's going on. But I think there's a degree he's portrayed as a little, I don't know, trying to get his next book.
Yeah, there's a blurb about that he's being sued by somebody.
It's Carlos, the Border Patrol agent.
Yes, who, when talking about, because Ross says, like, I had the photos. I'm the first guy who saw them. If anyone can, like, make sense of what's going on, it's me. And Carlos, like, says, like, I think that he is not really taking in the real implications of what these photos say.
Yeah, exactly. Because, I think as we said, this is about the moment when it kind of lays out Ross's interpretation of this, which is that it was a hate crime of some sort.
And again, he would be right under normal circumstances, but these are not normal circumstances.
And we get like these just angering, like occasional little like texts coming in, black with text, and like one of the things it says is Dan DeLuca, who's the deputy, was promoted for services beyond duty for his handling of this.
Because he was the first guy who came to the scene. He didn't do anything.
Yeah, but he was there. And Sheriff Pirano is reelected as sheriff because of how well he handles this. Salazar gets executed. We get I think like a really good little detail is like put up somewhere nearby is a big banner or something with Francisco Libre written on it. There's clearly a reaction happening to this, that like a lot of the people that are talking on the camera are these like white people that are, going, racist about this. But there clearly is like the Latino population in the area is not having this. They don't buy this at all.
There's a guy who has Salazar tattooed on his chest there. And we also, like, the reaction to the photos is we see graffiti of zombies and these are the more traditional looking zombies and what is presented in the photos. But this is where we have that there is a not necessarily popular, but there are people who get what is happening and are trying to spread awareness about it. And Salazar becomes a martyr figure as like the first survivor of what seems to be barreling to the north.
We get Gus Greer talking about how justice was served at Salazar's execution. And then, a little bit later, this is such a smart detail. I think part of why this movie is like getting more and more of a following is it was a little too ahead of its time. It was talking about this stuff during the Obama admin and during the right-wing ascendancy that we've really gotten to live through now. So this detail, Gus Greer finds something new to be angry about. Because isn't this not like what we live through with the culture warriors, right-wing culture warriors, right? You can fucking win the election. You can fucking have the military getting deployed in every goddamn
that
city.
You want. You get everything that you want.
And
but you still need to find something to be mad about.
And
Gus Greer
what's he mad
angry
about
Salazar getting buried in America?
Because Salazar was an illegal, and he came into this country illegally, and he got exactly what he wanted. He gets to be here forever.
He is so mad. He sounds so angry.
God.
I will make a note. He then talks about the brave patriots that dug up Salazar's corpse. So Salazar's grave, which is in the prison, is dug up, and his body goes missing. However, when you dig, there's usually a direction. This was dug from inside out. Yeah, kind of like, maybe he got bit by a zombie? No, that can't be it. No. It was brave patriots who broke into a prison to steal a body?
Oh my God.
So we get another piece of footage that it seems that Carlos is kind of charting.
What's happening?
He's following because we hear that there's a massacre here, there's a massacre there. They're all throughout like the Southwest, there are massacres as they're moving north.
And this is a great detail because it's not just that there was a miscarriage of justice, which, of course, that's most of the movie is you getting angry about that. It's that they did not deal with the problem.
No,
and
they didn't.
Because they chose to scapegoat this guy, they've unleashed something in America.
Yes. I wonder what that could be a commentary for. That's just it's just zombies, man.
It's just zombies. We have deaths in Utah, New Mexico, Texas. It's like all of the South. It's just got like all of these weird little incidents of campers getting dismembered.
So there's when was GoPro introduced?
That would have been around this time. I mean, or a little earlier than this. Yeah. Because I remember GoPro stuff when I was in high school. So that would have been before this.
So we get GoPro footage of these two hikers. Well, not really hikers. They're riding through a nature trail and camping. And they are torn apart by a horde of something. And the person tearing apart the guy who has the GoPro on has a orange prison jumpsuit.
Yep.
Salazar has joined the horde as they move north.
I gotta give a note here too. So one of my biggest pet peeves in found footage, and it's because, again, I think a lot of found footage stuff is about the medium. And so I think this is a detail I wouldn't care about in other types of movies, but I care about in found footage, is the shitty fucking glitching. You know what I'm talking about? When they do like weird glitch things to the footage to imply like a supernatural presence, and it never looks like what actual fucked up corrupted footage looks like. And that bothers me because it's found footage. So it fucking should matter. This is great. This is what corrupted footage looks like.
Because you can't really see anything, which happens when footage is corrupted. You only there's only like a couple of frames where you can really make out what's happening. Everything else is corrupted.
It's grainy and weird, and it's not like I can tell you just stuck like a pink filter over it for a second and put it offset. It has the thing where like a frame freezes for a second and then kind of reappears and blurs and, pixelates in a weird way. It trails, it does a lot of that. And, when the camera falls, it doesn't fall facing the guy's face so that you can perfectly see his facial expression. It's just looking at his hand for a second and then his hand disappears. And I don't know. This is such a small detail, but it's one of the little things that really sells this movie to me is that they seem to take the found footage aspect of it much more seriously than a lot of these movies do.
Even though this is like the only piece of traditional found footage in the movie, everything else is, photos. This is the only time where you have that aspect of it. And they do it fantastically.
It's a great note to end on.
That's the ending of the movie, is the horde is moving north. It has not been addressed. The problem has been covered up by whatever means and whoever was doing it. They scapegoated the sole survivor of the event and the only witness that can attest to what was happening and warn people about it. And they killed him, and now it is unleashed in the United States and is growing and is moving to more and more population centers.
Now, this movie is a good horror movie about a good socially conscious horror movie in the sense, though, that it isn't a one-to-one parallel to any specific thing. But there's some stuff you can, obviously the entire theme is about immigration, right? Now, what I would say here that comes to mind in 2025, as more and more of those of us who come from middle-class white backgrounds are starting to have to deal with and face the fact that ICE is being unleashed on our streets, and now something that we have to witness, something that will, if things go the direction they are, will affect us. Is it not a metaphor here that this thing that's been terrorizing people on the border is coming for us too?
Yeah, in a weird way, the zombies here are kind of Foucault's Boomerang.
Yeah,
it is important to note this is an Obama era movie.
Mm-hmm.
This is a movie that is set in 2011 and was released in 2015. A lot of the things that this movie talks about has been the case for a very long time, but it was ignored. Like how the zombies were, like it was easier to just scapegoat Salazar as the problem and then say that you got rid of it instead of addressing the rot. I'll be a little playful. Instead of addressing the rot, the rot at the core of it, you ignored it, and now the horde the infection has taken place.
Mm-hmm.
And the horde at the movie is only growing, more and more as it continues to move more and more to the north. But that's not quite the end of the movie, because as the movie ends and as credits roll, we get flashes of Salazar as a martyr, as someone who signaled what was coming early on and somebody who is remembered for it. I do want to make also a note that we didn't talk about Salazar's sister.
That's right. Yeah, I think we mentioned a lot of stuff that she said without saying her name, because she gives a lot of the background biographical details for him.
About Salazar. She is... She comes up mostly in the beginning of the movie, but she's mentioned again later. She never believes that her brother killed those people. Even she accepts the idea of zombies rather than her brother being a mass murderer, because it just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
She is not allowed a visa to enter the country to attend his execution or his burial. She never will see her brother again, and Salazar, as we know it, is gone. And as Carlos puts it in the movie in a very haunting way, he calls what's happening to the zombies an inconvenient resurrection. That there is something. This is a twisted form of the resurrection that Salazar was taught, which goes to I do think that there is something generally demonic happening with the zombies. There's some I don't think that this is. I don't think that we're dealing with a normal zombie infection. I don't think that we're dealing with a comet passing through Earth. It feels closer to Romero's original idea of hell being, too filled. But even that feels like not quite
right.
Unless you see the movie, you really can't get how otherworldly the zombies are.
Yeah, it does feel like it's an evil presence of some sort. It's some sort of evil force that's been unleashed. And I don't know. I do think that's I think it kind of an important component to this is that, it's not a traditional zombie. It's some sort of force. Yeah. I'll tell you, I think that this movie, was too early, and that's part of why people didn't know it at the time. Not that I think it's also an important detail that it came out in the Obama administration, because it is a reminder that this is not new. We are seeing a more militant, more extreme expression of these institutions, than what was present.
The kind of rhetoric that is expressed here is not new. It's been the case. If you didn't listen in, or you didn't want to listen, and you just wanted to, out of sight, out of mind, push it to the sidelines, you weren't aware of it until now, where you just hear about it all the time.
Yeah. I wonder to what extent when this movie came out, it felt like, it felt more like a caricature of right wingers than it does now.
I kind of want to, you kind of see that in earlier reviews about the right wing response to the movie feeling, too unbelievable. It's like and this is
It's
also
not unbelievable.
We should also state this is a pre-COVID movie too.
No, it's not unbelievable at all. And I feel like I've seen ways like this, the plot of this movie play out in headlines for the last 10 years. You know?
Yeah, this movie basically predicted what what like the next decade was going to be like.
Insanely ahead of its time. I don't think I mentioned this, and I'm kind of kicking myself that I didn't, but important little thing, since we've been talking so much about the cast, is that the actor for Francisco Salazar is Noé Montes. He is a photographer.
I didn't know that.
Not only that, is he's an artist. He's he's done sculpture. He's done a lot of stuff. And he is specifically an artist who deals with immigration. So, I mean, I found him on Blue Sky, and, you know, the most recent couple posts he's made are about ICE. He's a, LA based artist dealing with, the same themes that are in this movie, you know? I think it's really amazing that he got to play this role because he got to, I don't know, because it seems so in line with his art when you look at it.
I did not know that he was an artist.
I know, it was one of the coolest things I found while looking this up. He's got good stuff. If people are interested in hearing a little more from them, I'll throw an interview with him in the show notes. But yeah, he's been very involved in this in work about this specific issue, photographing immigrants, and doing a lot of interesting stuff. So
lots of photos of the United Farm workers,
as well as doing some interesting installations and stuff at some art museums or whatever. He's done some stuff with Blue Tarp, which I think is a really interesting medium when talking about these kind of subjects. So definitely go check his stuff out. Check out all the people we've talked about, because I think everybody involved in this movie did a very good job. And
everyone in this movie is good, and it often the case with found footage, especially, that is kind of a crapshoot as to who in this is pulling their weight. And it also goes at how people perceive them too. For the longest time, people made a joke out of Blair Witch having bad acting, which is not true. Blair Witch has incredible acting. It is insane that movie, and specifically, it is insane that that Heather Donahue was nominated for a Razzie for Blair Witch. That's insane.
Can we all go ahead and just say fuck the Razzies? We just all agree that nowadays, right? I just want to make that clear. Fuck the Razzies. Go back and look at the shit they've said about previous movies or whatever. Not only are they just very clearly misogynists, that's very frequently what's going on there. There's also a lot of great movies that have won Razzies because it was easy to dunk on that year. Fuck the Razzies.
The Razzies are terrible. Terrible institution. No point in existing. They did have a point before. They certainly do not have a point now. They are a relic of a bygone era that I assume exists in the minds of most bizarre fascist golden ages that never existed.
Yeah,
terrible,
just from a mean-spirited era of
very, and like you said, they have nominated so many for and again, see, they kind of tend towards women. I wonder why. Why do they seem to have an issue with actresses specifically? Very strong performances. I wonder why they read those as insincere. I wonder.
Crazy.
But it is, a toss-up for acting in a found footage movie. Is it going to be able to carry it? Is the idea enough? This is a movie that every person in this, from the man on the street that they interview to the talking heads to Salazar himself, everybody is so believable and really drives home the horror, but also the emotional core at the heart of this movie. And if any of those things that didn't work, if there was something off, I think that the entire movie would kind of be lesser for it. But as it is now, if you were to assign a numerical ranking to this movie, easily for me, this is a 10 out of 10 movie.
It's gone on to become a favorite of mine, and I think, well, and for those who listen to the Patreon, you would know that this made my list of one of the best movies of the 21st century when Alien and I did that like New York Times list. So I really love this movie.
It's excellent. I am better off since watching this movie. I am so happy that I heard about it. If this is the first time that you've heard about the movie, I can't express enough how much you should just go and watch it. It's on YouTube for free. It's on Tubi. It's on Tubi. It's on whatever free streaming service. It's on there. Please watch it. This is an excellent movie. It is one of the best movies of the 21st century. It is one of the best horror movies of the 21st century. It is a excellent example of what the format can do, what the mockumentary subgenre and found footage subgenre can do at its very best. It is a movie that is made ahead of its time, but also not ahead of its time. And that's important to note, that it shows, by it showing it so honestly, it shows that this has always been here. And it's just been allowed to, like the zombies, it was pushed aside until it emerged, fully formed.
Well, Jackal, this is not the last episode of Horror Month.
No, but it's the last public episode.
That's right. We've got one more Patreon episode coming up right now, that should be out, last week of October. I gotta, still, read it. Yes, read it. This is the only piece of non-film media we're talking about this month. But, I do always say horror media rather than film because I do want to cover stuff that's not just movies. So we're talking about a horror book, and it is going to be a continuation of me opening the John Darnielle door on this podcast. As people who listen to the Patreon know, on one of the last music exchanges, we talked about The Sunset Tree by the Mountain Goats, and I also guested on The Social Shelf to talk about Universal Harvester, one of my favorite. I don't know, it's a really good novel. One of the best examples of like a Midwestern sort of horror novel. This one's not Midwestern. We were talking about Wolf and White Van, his first novel, I think. I think he technically has a novella before this, but it's his first like proper novel.
Right. It's his first, he had written beforehand, but this is his first novel with a publisher.
And this is the one we're going to have a guest for. Oh, well, it kind of feels dumb to call him a guest. Josh is joining us.
Right. Isn't he like the official second host of Fruitless at this point?
Basically, yeah. Yeah, he's on here at least once a month, and that's a month. That's like if he's not on, that's the lowest amount of being on the show he is at least once a month. But yeah, Josh will be joining us. It'll be the three of us talking about some John Darnielle. And, I feel like every year we do a horror piece of media that's a little ambiguous, whether it's horror or not. That's part of the discussion. So last year that was Don't Torture a Duckling. This year that's going to be this one. I actually am the one who isn't sold on it being a horror novel, funny enough, but Josh is convinced it is. So we're gonna get all into that.
Right. And I need to finish it so I can have an opinion.
I need to start my reread of it because it just arrived. I wanted a physical copy, so I had to order it.
I am listening to John Darnielle's wonderful, wonderful voice serenade me.
His audiobooks are very good. If you get around to Universal Harvester, it's also got a very good audiobook.
I'm very used to him singing, so it was not a leap. Listen to the Mountain Goats also. They're great.
Totally. Very good. Wolf and White Van is a novel about a guy who, due to a failed suicide attempt, is left deeply disfigured and deals with this occurrence in his life by producing a mail-in role-play game. And people begin to follow the instructions in the game too seriously. You know what? It may not be a horror novel quite to me. It's a horrifying novel.
And that it fits the vibe. It fits the vibe. Yeah. It's the vibe of because I think there are a number of things that for October that are not directly horror related, but they have to fit a vibe of something going wrong, something is off. It goes back to the general feeling of October being the month that is that the world of the living and the world of the dead and the world of to quote the Nick Lutzko song, Helmo, it is when the monsters walk the streets of man.
That's right. Well, until then, I'll see you all later, and keep having a good October.
It's getting closer.
Hey, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you like what you heard, consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. Helps out with the algorithm. And if you really like what you heard, consider supporting the show on Patreon. And one of the benefits of supporting this show on Patreon is that you get your name read out at the end of every episode. So, without further ado, this episode is brought to you by our lovely patrons, who include Leo Zachary Dickinson. I am once again Philip Cozy. I drink corn syrup. Yum. Vita Breva. Abakite Brodagam. Caleb Sutton. Regular sized horse. Parentheses small. Kyle Gannis. Moss. The Worst of All Possible Worlds. Stephen A.K. Spike Stonehand. Gavin Aronson. Joseph Gross. Robert Eilman. Tension Francis. Shy. Randy Sutton. Josh Christensen. Caleb Butler, Ross Ben Daniels, Stephanie R., Frankie Teardrop, Martha Zumak, Benjamin Rawls, Ian Friedenberg, Ian S., James Lunt, A.A. Ron, Grouchius Marxius, Ruthus Truthus, Electron Shed, Ficus, Bramble Light Garden, Jacob Dallas, Kitty Sparks, Allen, and of course, Chris Barker. And now here is Bilingüe by El Shirota.